Welcome to the teaching room for another one of our newsletter tips, this one being the Christmas tip. We've had a lot of requests to do a video on how to play high lip bunkers, particularly the one just behind us here in the teaching room on the 14th, which causes people quite a lot of troubles, particularly when you're playing stroke. So there's other ones like 13, which cause some issues, big high lip, and the 18th, and there's probably a couple of others as well. The third hole, another one that comes to mind. So just three things I want to highlight with high lip bunkers and sort of longer shots as well. The first thing is that if you've really got the heebie-jeebies in the bunkers, please come and see us for a lesson, because there's a lot of things that we could talk about with bunkers that I can't really expand upon here in a sort of 5-6 minute video. But generally bunkers are, from my experience, are probably the easiest thing to fix in terms of when you have a lesson. I don't want to put a jinx on you, but normally that's the case. And it's usually just some simple sort of adjustment. We can tidy it up usually in a half-hour lesson, at least to get somebody reasonably competent in bunkers to the point where they can just get the ball out onto the green. So that would be my first piece of advice. But just for a little video here with just three things that might help you with high lip bunkers and longer shots. The first thing, without any doubt, in terms of what I see in lessons with people trying to get better at this shot, is we see so often people get into bunkers and their technique is actually, fairly decent, but they just swing too gently. So they'll get in there and they'll set up nicely and they'll get up and just like that. And that's okay if you've got a low lip and you don't hit it very high. But when you've got a high lip, the one thing you must have, one ingredient to hit a high bunker shot, is you've got to have club head speed. And one of the reasons why the pros are so good at this shot is that they obviously have really high club head speed with their full swings. And for them to get in there and just generate a nice amount of speed is quite simple. But for the average member golfer, whose swing speed is significantly slower, you might find, and I would say this is probably the case for most members, is that a shot like the one on 14, to get it up and out, you're going to need to go at that with 100% club head speed. And that's as fast as you swing the driver. And that's because you've got to get it high and you've got to carry it a fair distance. Now, that requires you to be a little bit brave, because if you catch it a little bit thin, you're going to hit it over the back. However, if you don't have that speed and you do a perfect technique, you're just not going to get out. So you have to be brave enough to keep the club head speed up. I know it's not always the nicest thing to take full swings close to the green, but if you want to get the thing out of a high lip bunker, you must have club head speed. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is that we often see that the natural reaction from people, even from people who've been playing golf for quite a long time, when you've got a high lip, is that you get in there and you'll set up, and then because you're sort of looking up there at that big high lip, the natural reaction is just to come in here and then try to fall back onto the back foot. Your upper center moves back over towards your right side, your weight goes back, and you try to lift it up and out. And as soon as that upper center starts to go backwards, the point at which you hit the ground moves too far behind the ball, and then you drop kick it and you take too much sand and the ball barely gets a foot in the air, or maybe 2 or 3 feet. So you have to make sure that your center stays stable and that you transfer a little bit of weight on the way down, and then when you finish the swing, you will finish over here like this. And you can see there's no weight, hardly any weight on my back foot. Good bunker players always finish like this, not like this, okay? So that's number two. And the third one, very quickly, is simply to just make sure you don't disregard other clubs other than the lob wedge and the sandwich. So particularly on a hole like 14, when you've got to carry the ball quite a long distance. Most people might be better off using a 52-degree wedge or a gap wedge, which might be, in your bag, might be what they call an A wedge or a U wedge. It's the club that sits between the sand wedge and the pitching wedge. You might even use the pitching wedge for the 14th if you want to carry it a bit further. But even on holes like 13 and on 18, sometimes you need a 52-degree wedge, which will still get you up high enough, but you need a little bit more carry to get the ball out. So for those of you who are finding that you're sort of not quite flying it far enough, try the 52-degree wedge, and if you're far enough back, you're not too close to the lip, you might even want to consider a pitching wedge. But certainly a 52-degree wedge is something that you need to consider, particularly if your club head speed is not quite as high as it maybe once was. So there is other options other than the sand wedge and the log wedge. All right, so they're the three things. Make sure the club head speed is high. You must keep the club head speed high to get the ball up enough to get over the lip. Second thing, make sure you finish with your weight forward. And the third thing, maybe consider using your 52-degree if you're not quite getting the carry up onto the green. Okay? That's my 3 tips for high lid bunker shots. Good luck with your bunkers over summer. And remember, if you need some help in the bunkers, please come and see Craig or I, or Ben, or David, and hopefully we might be able to help you out in a lesson. Good luck. Thank you.